Welcome back. Been busy this morning. Normally I put the camera on in the morning and we talk about what we're going to do, but we've already done it. So as you remember, I had the mark off here, but it didn't come out so great, but we can resolve that a little further. Shock mounts are made out of angle iron, doubled up. I mean, they're really strong, they're not going to break in a hurry, and they're welded on really heavily. But here's my problem. They're doing my head in. I'm trying to get this done as fast as I can. One, because it'll get that guy on the road a lot quicker and he'll get the summer. And the second reason is I've got so much to do. I really didn't have time to do this. Not that I'm complaining, I'm just stating facts. So I'm trying to minimise, and it isn't through laziness, it literally is time expansion. I'm trying to limit time. I don't want to cut that mudguard down, because that means I've got to sit there and glass the half up. I was going to cut it down the middle, cut it again, and then join the two halves together. But that kind of leaves me with one predicament, and that is I've got to spend the next 3 hours on each mudguard glassing it all back up, which I don't really want to do. I mean, we are going to have to do some fibre work on it because there's holes where the original mudguard brackets were, but that ain't going to work. So I thought, what about we go V-dub style and tilt it. Now that don't look too, hang on, let me just flip the screen around so I can see what I'm looking at. That, as all things go, I mean, I thought about tilting it, but so it gives it a sort of a VW look to it. That would make a lot more sense, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to be best. I'll have to ask the chap. I've just spoken to the bloke and he is happy for them to sit like that, raised up about 3 inches so they're equally spaced. That gives them the opportunity then to put bigger tyres on, you know, higher profile tyres, which I think we're going to be doing anyway, because I don't think these are going to be suitable for the job. So there we go. I guess that's where we're going with it. I did say I could cut it down the middle and shorten them. I mean, they need some work doing to them anyway, because they've got crazing all over them, and if I'm painting these all up, then that crazing needs to go. So they're going to need a lot of work. I'm almost tempted to chuck them actually and put some steel ones on it to save myself some aggro. See where we end up. I'm loving that triangulation at the back. So I've done it for a reason. One, because I want a bit of artwork in this, but two, I don't want, when I undo the bolts, I don't want this thing squeezing itself closed. And the next owner of this is after a tow hitch, so I need to be able to bolt it on somewhere. I still don't know where at the moment. He came round today, and that was another one of his requests. I so think that's a bad idea, but okay. I think what we'll probably end up doing is running some bars behind the axle off these bolts on brackets. I think that's going to be the only way I can do it, with a bit of reinforcement coming up from the centre down, like a bar there, and then one coming out there all the way along and going back onto that, top and bottom. I generally can't really think much around it. Oh, I need to get a face mask and a blinking extractor fan in here. Been breathing this stuff in. You can see it all on the floor, look. I've got chest pains everywhere from breathing this in. Not good. Right, it's the end of Monday. That's the mudguard frame so far to date. Now remember I said to you on previous episode about flat bar? Well, these are so solidly welded onto the frame that I really don't think I'm going to need to worry about that on this whatsoever. Obviously I've got to get behind, I've got to run weld all the way down, I've got to weld all the rest of that up, but this axle's now in the way. I've got to just shoot some stuff in there, down on the bottom. I've got to tidy that one up a little bit, it's a bit blobby. But yeah, we need to cut holes in the mudguard there and there so as it will sit flush, and it's deliberately high because, as we've spoken about, the tyres are going to be an issue. Now obviously that will drop down a couple of inches, and we've also got to cut these down a little bit in length because they're just too big at the moment. That kind of gives you a rough idea, doesn't it? Morning, Tuesday. No, Wednesday, sorry, I'll get the day right. It's Wednesday. That row of metal there is going to be the tow hitch. This is the original rear light bracket on the bike. Now, we don't have to put side markers on because it is actually small enough not to have it unless the law's changed. And I've been out of the game a while, so could have, but that's for there. That's going to go on there like that with a number plate. I mean, you can't see what I can see because I've got full vision of the whole area, but there you go. That goes there like that. Tow hitch will go at the bottom, number plate will go on that. We need new shocks, so I've got to order some new shocks for this because those ones, the rubbers are gone in them. I did wonder why I was getting a bouncy, notchy feeling when I was jumping up and down on the seat. Now I know why, because one of the rubbers is ovalled. Somebody's took out the steel sleeve, or they were never made with steel sleeves in the suspension rubber, you know, the buffering part of the shocks. So we've got that to sort. So new shocks, they're rusty anyway, they're terrible looking things. And I might just get some slightly longer shocks that will give me a little bit more clearance down here. I'm not happy with this. I keep looking at that, and the more I look at it, the more I dislike it and think it really does look quite ugly. I've got to think of something. Right, Postie's just been. Wasn't expecting this. I was expecting the emergency relay unit. Anyway, one master. That will go somewhere around about here. And we'll try and line that up with the cable rod so we can get on with that this week. The other thing that turned up, I think I might have made a mistake. They're huge. They're lovely, but they're blooming huge. I mean, look at the size of them. I mean, we can whack them in there. They'd look nice there, actually. One each side. But that doesn't mark the mud guards. The mud guards are too wide for them. Look at that. So it ain't going to work, is it? They ain't going to work as side markery types. So I think I will have to get the one for the mud guard with the red and the white. And we'll put these down here and they'll hide all the axle nicely. The tow hitch will be next to that if we go with the tow hitch still. They're really flipping nice lights, and they're only 15 quid. And they're solid looking things as well. Just being Chinese, I wasn't expecting any of that. Let me just get these lit up, hang on. Right, check this out. Yellow and black. That's your indicator. That's for your hazards. One's brighter than the other, I just can't remember which way round to go. Reverse, well, we won't be using that. Red, that's your brake light. That's your indicator. There you go, guys. Much better. I've actually cut the angles down top and bottom, trimmed off around the sides, finished the welding off on there, cleaned that all up, finished the welding off on that. Now I need to cut some 2mm thick steel strips, run them through the bead liner and weld them in position behind those cable tubes. We did speak about using rod, solid rod, but the mechanism for that's going to be a bit of a pain in the butt, if I'm honest. So I'm now sort of contemplating about going cable, but I went and cut through the bloody cable, didn't I, by mistake? I can't remember where it was there, I think. So we can't use those cables now. That'll be hidden, so I'm not really particularly too fussed about leaving them, but we are taking the axle off before we do all the paint, because we've got to wire brush that all back and give it a bit of a sandblast at the same time. So not only have I now got to order new brake shoes and slave cylinders, but I've also now got to order a new set of blinking cables, which I didn't want to do, but you know, it is what it is, isn't it? So yeah, I think next on this is to do the bracketry to hold those lovely lights, and then we can slice the mudguard brackets to a decent height, but we've got to bend those ones as yet to get them at a better angle, and I've got no room to be able to bend them at the moment, so we've got to spin this all the way around. So I think when I do the last test fit, when the axle is off, I'll do those last. Okay, the brackets are made. They're for the lights. Bit scruffy, but not going to be seen. I think what we'll do when we do the respray on this, the whole axle and framework will be bed lined, as you see, and then I think this piece here, the bumper part with the hitch and the nice little posh lights, I think we'll paint that the same colour as we're going to do the mudguards and the tank and side panels, because I think having those three at the top, them two at the sides, plus that at the back, will balance the colour out beautifully, and I think it will complement it more having that painted the rest of the trike instead of bed liner. So where are we at on this at the moment? Well, quite simple. We're coming to the end. I'm tired. I don't want to do any more work today, so I think we'll organise some hole saws and we are going to concentrate on fitting this tomorrow. So you know when something sits there and just eats at you constantly, and you just you keep staring at it, and it's like getting on your nerves, and that winds you up. Well, that wound me up. I had to cut it off, that bit of tube. I've re-welded it there, I've trenched it all the way around, filled it in, ground back, and I had to, this was difficult because that piece of steel here was right in the way, so I had to cut from here all the way along, and I had to hammer it in a little bit, and I over hammered it, hence the dent there. But it's fine, it's strong. We can rectify that at a later date. I mean, yeah, it is what it is. I need to turn it over because I've just got to clean up some welding underneath, and when we come to fitting everything on, I think we will just put a bit of filler over there, just because of that dent. I can't do nothing about it. I mean, I could have hammered more of the front, but I'd already welded the front down by that point, and I hit it too hard, didn't I, bugger. Look, that's like this. It was winding me up so much that I'd rather risk mucking up the entire swing arm and having to start all over again. That's how much it was winding me up. And when I cut... Right, a bit late at night, so I'm not going to talk too loudly. I've just taped them on to give you an idea of what's going on. It hides the diff beautifully. And then we've got the guards to go on. So we've got to do a bit of hole sawing for those. There you go. Give you an idea. And then you've got the light that goes on in the middle, but I can't put that on with tape. Oh, that's just too heavy. But that'll look, trust me, it'll look really good. And then we've got to put a couple of lights on top of the mudguards. I'm going to try and get some flush mount ones instead of those ones that are on stalks, because I don't like those stalk ones. They look daft. They're too commercial for this. But if I can get some flush fit ones, then great. That means one wire running through the tubes into the mudguards, which suits me down to the ground, because I was getting a bit concerned about how I was going to wire this up, and the earth can be strapped to the underside of the bracketry so moisture don't get in there, because we're going to grease those Bolton points up. What I'll do is I'll do a pigtail, an earth pigtail with a plug on the end, and then I'll just plug next to the hole where the hole is for the wires to thread through. I'll have the live coming through, and then we'll put a screw through with the pigtail on for the earth, and then we'll clip up to that. That is another job coming up, because we've got to drill holes, and you need to hide the wires, because realistically there's nowhere, there's just nowhere for them without them being sightly. We don't want the wires on full view if we can help it. If we do, then I'll have to, well, what I could do, I'm not really willing to do this at the moment, I could get a special shroud, like hydraulic wire, for example, hydraulic hose. You can get braided steel, so I could hide all the wires in that. So yeah, that's a decision that will have to be made later. I don't want to pour too much money into this, because my labour time is really getting chewed up here. but I will say this much, it is going really well. I had concerns, but I wasn't going to tell you guys this. I was just going to deal with it if the problem occurred, and that was, I was a little worried because stuff moved when I was welding. I was worried that the axle was going to sit at a wrong angle and that I'd have to either cut something or space the axle out, but as it happens, it is smack on, absolutely down to the millimetre, and I can't believe I actually pulled that off. Actually, I pre-planned that, so I knew exactly what I was doing. Yeah, we're there. Back brake. One Land Rover master cylinder with an 8mm shaft. Two rose joints with 10mm bolt and two 10mm nuts locking them tightly against. Two 10mm holes underneath. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a steel plate, a big steel plate that can be welded onto the frame. We're going to drill two holes and we're going to mount those thus. Okay? Then what I want to do is this shaft that came out of the back hub of the bike, we're going to cut that, and we're going to get another piece of metal made up about yay long with a hole at the bottom, 8mm, and a hole at the top which will just hopefully slide over the top of that nut. And what I want to do is put another nut behind this and then weld that shaft on so it's spaced away from the edge of the rose joint. Right, that one's going to be going downwards, and then when we cut this we will then weld that end, which I'm sure will work, over the top of that nut all the way around there, so we've got an extra shaft stick out. Then we will put that on like so, and then the original cable can then run through that eyelet as it did before, and this will connect up to the bottom shaft. So when you put your foot on the brake, you're pulling the cable, that will then do that, which in which turn the shaft coming down will then go that way, which will then push on this, which should in theory give me brakes. What can go wrong? So that can now be hammered in there, and then we can weld around that nut all the way around that edge there, and that'll be solid, ain't going nowhere. We'll weld a second nut onto the end of that just so we can get a bit of space away from that, and because I've left a little tiny hole on the back, I can then drill another hole out the same diameter as this, and we can then tap that one into there and then weld around there, and that should be a fairly solid construction. Now if my lathe was working properly, which it isn't, and I had a knurl, I could actually make this entire shaft fit two of these, and I wouldn't even need a rose joint to go on the end of that, because I could in theory put that on there because the swivel part is there. That's the nuisance of it all. So we've had to do it this way. So yeah, this is going to work. I've got no ifs or buts. So I'll cut the thread about there, so we've got a good 1/2 inch. I'm going to drill through that nut all the way through and stick a split pin in there so that can't come undone and move. So we've got this pretty well covered. It's in there, it's an interference fit. Now all we need to do is put a bead of weld around that, and that should be solid. Yeah, that is now part of that metal. Right. There is the first half of my modified brake. We've drilled into the steel, as you saw. I've just added a few more welds to that because there's a little bit of undercut going because you've got a thread there. We need that thread. I then re-drilled on the other side going into the head, and we've welded that in. There's just one more small thing I want to do, and that's drill a hole through the sides so I can lock both of these together. It should work relatively well. So we're drilling a 10mm hole. This is for the rose joint to go on, the other rose joint. I may have made a small error on judgment, but we'll see close to the time. What we've done is we've welded a 10mm rose joint on here. This is actually an 8mm thread, and I think it's so. Yeah, we'll see how that pans out, because it's nice to be able to adjust those. And I welded it on, and suddenly dingling in my head, I thought, oh you prat. So we're kind of gone. I mean, I can cut it, I can re-thread it, but how far that will go in, I really don't know at this point. So we'll carry on and we'll see where we end up. May have to change that at a later date. At worst, we'll get a whole new brake master. Not a big deal for these. They're cheap as nut. 15 quid's all that cost. No big deal. There's the rose joints. Flat plate will sit up there, and then we'll have a plate come down there. So these two can be bolted on. We bought a hole saw to make that hole out, so that's not an issue. We will have to set that at that angle because we've got to clear that distance, but only half of that will probably get used once the fluid is all in there and everything starts moving and pushing. I may have to drill a second hole up here though, because this might just be too steep of an angle and might be really hard to push down on the foot, and we may have to move that up there, but we can't really get a nut and bolt behind here, so we'll have to put a thread in there. That's all we can really do. And then we'll wind the bolt in there and try and find a way of wiring it so it can't come out. If it just sticks out the other side, we might be lucky enough. We might have to space it, but we're right on the edge there. Look, if we can get a big enough space, I can put the bolt head with a hole drilled with a pin or something behind, a split pin. But this is it so far anyway. I mean, it's all experimentation, so at the moment I'm just going to concentrate on that, and all of this comes off. So it's there, but there's quite a few flaws in this idea. One of them is I can't keep these damn things still, so they keep moving around. I'm just trying to figure a way of setting them up so they literally can't shift. The other problem I did is I used two nuts, and I cut a washer in half because I didn't think there was enough room. The 12mm washers with 10mm because I ain't got no. Anyway, they're wrong, so they've got to come out, and I've got to put some cap heads in there, Allen keys. So this bit here gets welded onto the frame. This bit here I now need, well, I quite literally now need to make, you see where this is going? I now literally need to make a bracket for this now and find somewhere on the frame for that to go. Well, the mechanism's done now. Put some cap heads underneath, a lot better, a hell of a lot better. Anything I'm a bit concerned about, adjustment can be made on here, but that's the amount of travel I'm going to get having a lever that long. I think that needs another hole drilled there with a thread. The problem with that is it changes the angle of that dramatically, because at the moment I'm going to lay it out onto the trike at that angle. There you go. See if we can lay this out so you get a general idea. Right, if we square that off with the table, push that at that angle, so that will be sitting roughly like that, for perfectly good reason that I can't explain at this point in time. So we'll detach that, we'll get the swing arm back in, we'll clear this bench, get the swing arm in, we'll put it back on the table. We've got to finish welding up these plates. We're not quite finished there yet because I couldn't get the welder there because the axle was in the way, and I've marked where that plate is going to be welded on the swing arm, so we'll put that plate on. And then when I need this inside the shed at this point, because we've now got to make the holder which is going to go underneath here so the cap is there, and then we can run the pipe work from there across to where it needs to go. We're all welded up, that is now on. Those bits behind are done, they're all welded on. There's one and there's two, that's finally finished. I've also stamped my very own serial number on here, which was a completely pointless exercise, but I'll know if I see this again if it's mine or not. So there you go, CTS number 3. CTS Collins trike swing arms number 3. This is the third swing arm I've made to date. It's not the third trike I built, I've done several, but this is the third swing arm conversion. I'm pretty pleased with it, which is why I'm prepared to put my name on it, because I'm not expecting anything to go wrong with this, nothing. Now ideally I'd like to keep that and use it, but there's no 100% guarantees on this at the moment. I think we've got it. So what I did, that nut on that bolt wound all the way up. This thread, which is an M thread, M16, was re-tapped to fit that thread, which I cannot remember what it is, or I just simply don't know, but I found one that fitted, so I tapped it. Then we screwed, oh hang on, no we didn't, we then put a screwdriver slot in it, wound that in, then we got another nut like that, cut up the end off, put 2 nuts on, joined that one to that one, and then we joined that one to that one inside there. Then that nut that's there, that was on the end, we wound that down very gently. We didn't over tighten it because it would move, and we didn't want that to happen. And then we tack welded that in on that end. Obviously there was a big gap that side, and we needed to reinforce this tube, which I have now done, with a nice big piece of steel plate that has slid into there. We've welded all the way around, all the way around. I'm now hoping, I'm really hoping, that that will be an adequate holding point for the third bolt position for the swing arm when I get round to putting the rose joint on. Rose joint, he says. There is said rose joint. The only thing I haven't figured out is how on earth we're going to lock that down so the bolt doesn't come out, because obviously ideally we need an eye lock there, but we ain't got one. So I don't at this point know, and I'm hoping it's smack on square, because if it is, it won't destroy any of the, see, how can I put it, fatigue. If that moves around because it's out square, there's going to be a lot of fatigue on there. There is a little bit of room for movement, but not a lot. The ball will move around. It should be okay, but I honestly won't know until I put the whole thing on the trike, and then when we take the side stand off, we'll then make up a bracket for this, so that will sit in like that and give me the third holding point that is desperately needed, I think. My mate reckons that that one and that one should be more than adequate to hold it, but it's off centre. That's what I'm concerned about. That one there makes the whole thing off centre, because for some unknown reason Yamaha decided to put the prop shaft on the outside edge instead of in the middle like they do with most motorcycles. But no, not on this one, on the outside edge. Awkward swines. Okay, come this Tuesday coming, this is exactly a 2-week swing arm build. I've finished. I've just got a wire brush back now, de-spatter as much as I can. There's quite a bit of it, and you get a woodworking chisel and just chisel that muck off. There's quite a bit in various places, and we don't want that on there because it shows up like the proverbial sore thumb. I think I might stamp the word Virago on this as well, so if the bike ever becomes a bike again and somebody wants to sell this on, they may put it at the back of their shed and forget about it. I've seen many a swing arm over the years that's been advertised. Don't know what trike it's for, but there is, you know what I mean. I would like this to be reused, so I think we'll get the old stamps out and very carefully stamp Virago on here somewhere. Other than that, there isn't anything else I could do. So it's going to get a wire brush over the weekend, all of it. Quick grind down in some areas that I find it a little bit diggy, and that swing arm's done. I even cocked that up a bit. I actually had to hammer it up in the end because I didn't go high enough. Should have been level with that, and it was way down, which meant the bar would have hit here, and I'd had to cut a hole here and thread it through and all that rubbish. So no. Right, okay, so we've got stamp ID there, Yam, Virago, cables in, brakes are in, shock absorber mounts are in, gussets are in, mudguards are cut down, extra bolt and point, whether it'll work I don't know at the moment, but that's on and in. There's nothing left on this now. The only thing other is to give it a good wire brushing and try and get rid of some of the spatters that are on it. Other than that, we are now ready to paint. So I'm feeling pleased because it's been 2 very long slogging weeks doing this, and it was starting to get to me. I thought I don't really want to be here another week welding. I generally don't. We've got work to do on the axle next, but if we just push this out of the way, get the axle cleaned up and get that ready, because we've got a see, I don't know what this guy wants to do. He's been harping on about reverse gear for this, and obviously being the type of bike it is, it's not possible to have a reverse gear. But I did see an idea that was on somebody else's machine which I thought was genius, and that was putting between the prop shaft and the flange on the diff, they had a gear bolted in between, and then they had a metal plate on a hinge and a spring, so there was a gear there and another gear there joined to that one on a starting motor, and they had that on a lever that flicked it across, so when he wanted to get it in reverse, he'd just literally flick it over, jump on it, press the button, and the bike would reverse. I thought that was brilliant. I haven't got the facilities laid in for it at the moment, and I want to put a tube over the top of that so we can enclose the entire prop shaft. If he decides that he needs this unit fitted, I kind of need to know now so I know what size gear to look for, and I'll obviously have to cut a little slot out at the side so as the external gears can be pushed up against it, and without that I can't do nothing. I reckon it will be an electric actuator. If we do go down that route, it'll be an electric actuator that will push that across. Now I'm kind of debating, as I know he wants one and he's looking online for that system, I'm kind of debating whether, just to keep my eyes open for something that could be used for that system that he wants. And at the moment I can't think of anything to pull apart that is going to have 3 sequences of gears that I could use. I need a large one for that, and then I need a small one for the middle, and then another large one, possibly not, or is it, no, I got that all wrong. I would need a large one on that, then a medium one, and then a small one on the starting motor, and then that way we can engage reverse. Be about the only way I could think of doing it. So maybe we'll keep our eyes skinned for a bit of old 50s 60s bit of equipment that's been left lying around down the yard. It's got gearing on it. Maybe we can do something with that. I don't know, because buying sprockets is gear sprockets is really expensive business. To get something machined up, one sprocket alone would probably come to a good £100. But the system is sound. I've seen it in operation. Whoever he was, he really did come up with a genius way of creating reverse. Totally impressed the hell out of me. So with that in mind, and with everything else that's going on, I'm going to definitely disappear. So again, thank you very much for pressing the likes, thanks for the comments, and we'll catch you next time round. Bye bye.